10 years ago when you said Donald Trump was an authoritarian. And you know what, Scott, I've got to hand it to you. That was a remarkable forecast because 10 years later, I think you called it. Here's Donald Trump today, the man with the heart and soul of a fascist, showing us he now has the bona fides by tonight.
Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today I've stumbled across this debate video on CNN where Scott Jennings gets absolutely demolished by Miles Taylor. And trust me, you need to see this entire exchange because it just keeps getting better. And hey, please comment down below where you're from. I absolutely love seeing progressives from all over the world connecting in here. And please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. We are so close to 20,000 subscribers and I cannot wait to hit that milestone with you all. All right, now let's get into the video.
A lot has happened tonight. Buckle up. Marjorie Taylor Greene is learning what it feels like to be on Trump's bad side. She has been one of the most vocal Republicans calling for the full release of the Justice Department's investigative files on Jeffrey Epstein. And now President Trump tonight is unendorsing. He is withdrawing his endorsement of Marjorie Taylor Greene and writing on Truth Social that all I see wacky Marjorie do is complain, complain, complain. And then he added that I can't take a ranting lunatic's call every day. There was a lot there. So you can go and then talk about a lot. Then MTG fired back with screenshots of text messages that she claims where she claims that Trump is lying and that she did not call him, also saying that it is astonishing, really, how hard he is fighting to stop the Epstein files from coming out. She argued that she has been one of Trump's strongest supporters, but that she doesn't, quote, worship or serve Donald Trump. On top of unendorsing, he actually said that he would support anyone who would be primarying her in the upcoming election. Who wants to take this one on?
Well, I can tell you that is not unusual in politics. Political romances are often short-lived. And she has been critical of him not only about the Epstein files, but about his involvement in foreign affairs. And I don't mean with women. I mean in various parts of the world.
You said it, not us.
Just to clear the table on that one. and so it's not surprising that they have had a breakup of sorts after all. He didn't give her a ring. He just supported her for a little while.
Listen, this fire is spreading. I mean, right, it started off talking about Epstein in the beginning. Then during the shutdown, she was one of the few Republicans that correctly identified Donald Trump's unwillingness to deal with the ACA subsidies and lower healthcare costs for Americans as being one of the reasons why the shutdown occurred.
Yeah, she was very outspoken about that.
Now she's talking about foreign policy. This is not going away. Whatever is going on between them seems to only be heating up, and I think the rest of us should get the popcorn.
I think
They're here for it.
And a war with words, sorry, Scott, a war with words with Donald Trump is such a risky business that I cannot believe she has the bravery to engage in it, because even if she was right, she's still going to lose.
Is there an example of anyone beating Donald Trump at this game?
Never. This is his game, and he's great at it, and she's barking up a tree that she's going to fall on her really hard.
You know, it's interesting. He has some people who profess to be strong supporters who do oppose him more often than the people that you might not think are his strongest supporters. She's one of them. Thomas Massie in Kentucky is another one. Rand Paul, my home state senator, he takes on Trump, although they profess to be Trump supporters. In this case, I think he had the order out of order. I trace all this back to his decision, the righteous decision to strike Iran. She was against it. So were some of the people who occupy that wing of the party. He defied them. And since that time, they all seem to be stridently picking at him on this issue or that. And then, of course, everybody knows in Washington, Miles, you know, the fastest way to get in front of a television camera if you're a Republican is to come out and crap on Donald Trump. And so that is what she is doing. But, you know, Scott, that is what she is doing because she is mad at him over these issues, and that's what happens.
No, I absolutely disagree with what Scott Jennings said here. This is such a transparent attempt to reframe what's actually happening. Scott's trying to paint MTG as some clout chaser going after the former president for TV time, but let's be real about what we're witnessing here. First of all, the idea that criticizing the previous administration is the fastest way to get in front of a television camera for a Republican, in my view, that's completely backwards. We've watched for years as Republicans who dare question the party leader get primaried, lose their seats, and get completely ostracized from the party. Look what happened to Liz Cheney, Adam Kinzinger, and countless others who broke from the established leadership. They didn't get more TV time and power. They lost everything. Their careers were destroyed for speaking out. And here's what really gets me. Scott's framing this like MTG is being opportunistic by opposing the Iran strike and other policies. But isn't that supposed to be how Congress works? Members are supposed to push back on military action they disagree with. with. That's literally their constitutional role. The fact that he's treating legitimate policy disagreements as some kind of betrayal shows how much the party has become about personal loyalty rather than actual governance or representing constituents. In my opinion, the most revealing part is how he connects everything back to what he calls the righteous decision to strike Iran. Notice how there's no debate about whether the strike was actually justified or served American interests. It's just automatically righteous because of who made the call. That's not political analysis. That's devotion. That's treating policy decisions as beyond question based solely on who made them. Now, I'm not defending MTG's overall record here. She's got her own significant issues. But the idea that any Republican who disagrees with leadership on foreign policy or healthcare or anything else is just doing it for attention, that's a wild standard that basically says elected officials shouldn't do their jobs if it means questioning party authority. What we're really seeing is the continuation of this expectation that Republicans must show complete unwavering loyalty on every single issue, or they're labeled as traitors and opportunists. And that's just not how a healthy political party functions in a democracy.
Scott, I trace it further back than that. I trace it back to 10 years ago when you said Donald Trump was an authoritarian. And you know what, Scott, I've got to hand it to you. That was a remarkable forecast because 10 years later, I think you called it. Here's Donald Trump today, the man with the heart and soul of a fascist, showing us he now has the bona fides by tonight ordering investigations into American citizens. That's why members of his party, that's why members of his
running the executive
against him.
Why are you so upset he's running the executive branch?
For the same reasons you predicted he shouldn't. For the same reasons, Scott, you said he violated his oth and he should never be back in that office. That's why I'm upset for the man being in the Oval Office.
I happily voted for him 3 times.
I know that.
The alternative was terrible.
And a lot of your friends were shocked.
Yeah, well, a lot of my friends would have been shocked at you trying to subvert the elected president of the United States, which you did.
Well, I proudly did. I proudly
Some
said
mid-level
to the
staffer
country
substituting his judgment for the elected president of the United States.
Well, Scott, I would have loved to have seen you stand up to it.
Good luck.
Back to
Oh my goodness. Thank you, Miles Taylor, for saying what needed to be said. This is exactly the kind of pushback we need to see more of. What Miles just did here is so important because he's holding Scott accountable for his own words and his own predictions. Scott literally called out the authoritarian tendencies years ago. He saw it. He named it. He said this person violated their oath and shouldn't hold office. And now he's defending those same actions he once condemned. In my view, Miles absolutely nailed Scott on the hypocrisy. You can't spend years warning about authoritarian behavior, predicting exactly what would happen, and then when it actually happens, just shrug and say, well, I voted for him 3 times anyway because the alternative was worse. That's not principled conservatism. That's just partisan rationalization. And notice how Scott's response completely dodges the substance. Instead of addressing the fact that his own predictions came true, instead of grappling with the reality that the concerns he raised are now manifesting, he pivots to attacking Miles as a mid-level staffer, substituting his judgment. That's such a revealing deflection because it shows he can't actually defend the contradiction in his own position. Miles stood there and said, you predicted this exact authoritarianism? You said it disqualified this person from office, so why are you upset that I'm upset about the same things you warned about? And that's a completely fair question. If Scott was right 10 years ago about the dangers, then Miles is right now for opposing those same dangers. What really gets me is Scott's framing of Miles as someone trying to subvert the elected president. No, Miles was trying to prevent the exact authoritarian overreach that Scott himself predicted. That's not subversion, that's defending democratic norms and constitutional principles. The same principles Scott claimed to care about when he made those warnings. And Miles saying, I proudly did, that takes courage. He's not hiding from his actions. He's standing by the principle that some things are more important than partisan loyalty. He's essentially saying, yes, I believe the warnings that people like you were giving, and I acted accordingly. In my opinion, this exchange perfectly captures the problem with so many Republicans who saw the danger, warned about the danger, predicted exactly what would happen, and then when it all came true, just decided partisan team loyalty was more important than the principles they claimed to hold. Miles is holding up a mirror, and Scott doesn't like what he sees reflected back, because what he sees is someone who compromised every warning and every principle he once stated for the sake of partisan convenience. And instead of owning that, Scott attacks the person who actually took his warnings seriously. This is why we need more people like Miles willing to say, you were right about the dangers then, so I'm right to oppose those dangers now. That's consistency. That's principle. And Scott's reaction shows exactly why it makes people uncomfortable, because it exposes the moral compromise.
GG, is it the sign of a changing tide? Is it the sign, or is it a singular one back and forth between one Republican who is getting into a fight with Donald Trump? Or do you think there is a possibility that it is the beginnings of Republicans seeing past the Donald Trump era?
The short answer is that we don't know.
Because you've got like Thomas Massie saying exactly that. Like your vote on this discharge petition is going to outlast Donald Trump's time here. So you need to consider that when you make your decision.
But if we keep paying attention, what we see is that last week the president got his clock clean in an election. All the Republicans got their clock clean in an election. This week we see what's happening with the Epstein files. So next week we're going to see them take a vote. And if we see a bunch of Republicans defect on the Epstein files, I think what we're seeing is the real testing of the waters to find out whether or not you can oppose Donald Trump and still get elected. When we talk about Marjorie Taylor Greene, the one thing we haven't talked about yet is her fundraising prowess. And according to sources, she is the most popular fundraiser in the Republican Party other than Donald Trump.
She's
If that's the case, they're going to divide up.
This prediction about no one's going to care about this.
I was asking it a question. I wasn't predicting it.
No, you said people were. Somebody said that this was going to outlive.
Tom Massie.
And the prediction that this was going to outlive. I totally disagree with that. I think right now more people are worried about whether they can watch ESPN on YouTube TV tomorrow than they care about this, and that's certainly going to be true in 1 year, 5 years, or 10 years from today.
But what they do care about, hold on, but what they do care about,
they did not get their clocks cleaned last
They do
week.
care about
They
the fact
did
that the
not.
president is sort of breaking everything.
Right.
They see a hole in the White House right now. I was in Detroit last weekend for an event, and it was the number one thing people came up to me at the scholarship dinner to ask about. Is it okay for the president to tear down the White House without anybody's permission?
That was the number one thing?
That was the number one thing that people brought up unprovoked.
Ridiculous.
To find out about.
I keep hearing this over and over again. Is like no one cares about this because they only care about that.
You know what they care about? They can't buy a house.
That they can't. They care about
houses
affordability.
Unaffordable, and that food costs too much. But they don't care about the White House. The fact is, a president who can't model the White House.
Many people care about the White House.
That's ridiculous.
Every visitor.
Many Americans care about the White House.
Make major
You don't care about the White
decisions,
House.
Can't remodel a room in the White House.
He remodeled it. He tore it down. He tore down
Tomato, tomato.
In the middle of a
I couldn't
government
tear down my
shutdown.
garage without getting a permit from the city.
And that's
He
all
can
the
tear it down.
But let me ask you this.
People don't
I
have
jobs.
jobs.
Are you kidding me right now, Betsy? Every year they remodel a room in the White House. Is that seriously the defense we're going with here? Let me just break down how absurd this comparison is. There is a massive difference between routine maintenance and remodeling of the White House, which happens through proper channels with historical preservation oversight, and what's being discussed here, which is apparently tearing down structures without going through the appropriate processes or getting necessary permissions. In my view, Betsy's attempt to minimize this by comparing it to regular room remodels is such a dishonest framing of what people are actually concerned about. The White House is a historically significant building. There are preservation standards, there are processes, there are reasons why you can't just do whatever you want to. A building that's a national landmark and symbol of American democracy. And the fact that she's acting like citizens shouldn't care about this? That's wild to me. People absolutely should care about how our national monuments and government buildings are treated. This isn't some private residence where you can knock down walls on a whim. This is the people's house. It belongs to all Americans, and there are legitimate reasons why major structural changes require oversight and proper procedures. What really frustrates me about this argument is how it dismisses genuine concerns as irrelevant. Yes, people care about housing costs and food prices. Of course they do. But human beings are capable of caring about more than one thing. We can be concerned about economic issues and also care about whether proper procedures are being followed with our national historic buildings. These aren't mutually exclusive concerns. This whole nobody cares about this argument is so condescending and manipulative. When Betsy says people only care about whether they can watch ESPN or afford a house, she's creating this false choice where Americans have to pick between caring about their daily lives and caring about democratic norms and institutional integrity. That's not how citizenship works. That's not how engaged democracy works. And honestly, the way Betsy just waves this off with every year they remodel a room shows such a lack of understanding, or maybe a deliberate misrepresentation of what the actual concern is. Nobody's upset about routine maintenance or updating fixtures or repainting walls. The concern is about major structural changes being made without following established protocols for historic preservation. These are not the same thing. When previous administrations have made changes to the White House, they've worked with the Committee for the Preservation of the White House. They've consulted historians. They've followed proper procedures. That's the standard. That's what's expected. And when someone bypasses those standards, yes, people notice and yes, they care. In my opinion, this is classic misdirection. When you can't defend the substance of what's happening, you minimize it, compare it to something completely different, and then act like anyone who cares about it is being ridiculous or out of touch with real Americans. But the American people aren't stupid. They can see the difference between regular upkeep and major structural changes done without proper authorization. And the fact that she keeps insisting nobody cares, even after her fellow panelists just said people in Detroit were bringing it up unprompted at events, that tells you everything. She's not reflecting what people actually think. She's trying to tell people what they should think. So what do you think of this? Leave your thoughts in the comment section below, and please don't forget to like and subscribe. I'll see you in the next video.